Good morning and welcome to the Morning Coffee Show. I'm Prince Hakeem.
I'm Mandela.
And today we have a great show for y'all. Now, if you're a parent and you're watching this, you might want to send your kids out the room just so they don't get any ideas or insight on what we're going to talk about. But it's about parents and children, but mainly about disciplining your child. So, are you for beating your child or not beating your child? Beating, whooping, spanking, disciplining your child. So we want to hear from you. I'm actually going to put a poll on our Facebook page. So if you go follow us on Facebook at Morning Coffee, you can also follow us on Instagram at Morning Coffee, and you'll be able to see the poll from there. So what do you think? I want to get your take on it because we're both parents.
So we were both brought up in a similar time, right? So when I was little, my parents, used, like most parents, a belt or a shoe or
anything close,
anything that was reachable, anything in the vicinity. I had friends who I remember being in a park one day, and one of my friends, he snuck out the house to play, and his mom showed up in her car with a one of those wooden paddles, long. It was had a handle,
wow,
but it was the long square one.
Yeah.
And she got out the car and she's like, "Get over here!" So, and it wasn't, it was funny. People were laughing. The kids are like, "Oh shit!" and everybody's running.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a thing. If that were to happen today,
cops are being called.
Cops are coming.
CPS is coming.
And so it was a different time. That was acceptable. That back then, that was how parents dealt with things. But obviously now times have changed, and I'm a lot more educated than I was at 5.
Yeah.
And I see things a lot differently because of what I do for a living. So obviously my own personal take on it has changed and evolved over the years. And then you have CPS is a whole different story. And for those of you who don't know, the parameters with CPS are pretty, it's pretty cut and dry. We're supposed to provide for our children, make sure they're nourished, make sure they're safe, clean, and these are general rules. So we're not saying they have to bathe every day, because I called CPS on some people and they were not that big a deal.
Let's get this clear. Parents bathe your children every day.
You're supposed to bathe your kids. I'm just saying you won't get in trouble if you skip a day. That's all I'm saying. And then when it comes to discipline, if you decide you're one of those parents who want to put your hands on your kids, you cannot leave marks at all.
That's
if you leave marks, that is a CPS case.
That's the
line.
Workaround?
You cannot leave marks. You can't leave any kind of marks. And I'm talking about I've seen where somebody will get a CPS, when parents yoke their kids up. So if I go like this and pull, and then you see these you see that it's they can't see it, but it's just the finger marks. If those for some reason stay, or say, I don't know, they have immediate response and a cop shows up right after I do that, and those red marks are still there, that is a CPS case. You left a mark.
Do you get charged for an assault?
I don't know what the parameters are legally. I do know that you could get charges for child abuse, child neglect, child endangerment. I've even seen a case where a parent got a CPS case for pulling their kid's ear. Because when she pulled, the parent pulled an ear of a little boy, dragged him along, and it left from her fingers pulling, it left a black and blue on his ears. So no marks.
I don't know if that's I guess that's the parameters, but would you, are you down for disciplining your child, if it came down to it? And like to what extent? Like how far?
So I prefer not to hit.
Okay.
I will not say that I am perfect, so I don't know. I haven't had to hit my daughter ever, but she's only 6.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the time.
We got time.
Oh, give it 10 more years.
But I mean, you have those moments always where you're like, what is this kid thinking? Like,
Yeah.
and there are other kids around me, so I see, how other kids interact and do things, and I know every parent gets to the point where they're like, oh, I want to so bad. But then there's that other side of me that's like therapeutic, and I think about like the long-term effects of that, and you don't know.
Yeah.
Kids are so susceptible to so many different things. You really don't know how what you will do will have an impact in the future on that kid. Some kids, they get beaten and it's like whatever, they move on with life. And some kids, they get beaten and it's like the trauma of their life. And they grow up like, oh, I got abused, my parents beat me, it was the worst thing ever. You just don't know. Like, some kids are super sensitive. Some kids will, you could grab a belt and go to town and they'll just jump up and be like, I got beaten.
That's Satan's spawn. Like, or they just immune to the whooping. Like,
and some kids are just like tough. Like, some kids don't, not that they don't feel, but they're like so tough that they're like whatever. It doesn't have an effect.
You just haven't got whooped by my parents. Like, when you have to go pick your own like weapon of choice.
That's like old school.
That's old school. Now I personally would say, parents have the right, or I won't say the right, but they have the choice to do either one. You could just talk to your child and put them in the corner or take some stuff away from them. Or you can spank them. I say within reason, like you said, no marks or anything like that. I think for me, my son's 10, and I can count probably on one hand how many times I had to like physically discipline him, and I would say it was nothing like what I got. It wasn't one of those, I'm laying in my room and I'm contemplating on running away. It was nothing like that. It's legitimately like he put himself in like harm's way, and it scared me. It was like, and I think it was a reaction. When even after I disciplined him physically, I stopped and I thought about it, and I said, I just disrespected my son, because I wouldn't want him to think it's okay for anybody to put their hands on him, no matter what you have done. So I went back and I apologized. I know that sounds crazy, but I went back and apologized to my son and said, look, I'm sorry that dad had to, put his hands on you. However, I do want you to understand the extreme of what happened here. You scared me. And it's not that I'm hitting you because you didn't wash the dishes, or, you didn't let the dog out, something crazy like that, or you just didn't hear me and I'm thinking that you're like ignoring me. It's not because of that. It's legitimately you about to hurt yourself, and that scared me. So I think I'd rather like pop you before you hurt yourself even further. I'm not saying it's okay, but once I recognize that if you sit down and talk to your children, you have to start this early. Like, it has to be in that stage of before they hit 6. I think like 6 is when they start to like.
I would say even earlier than that.
Yeah, but before
like
6. Yeah.
And I like that you said, how you said you felt like I disrespected my son.
Yeah.
Because, that was a big part of why I decided like I didn't always want to do that with mine. If you think historically, like slavery and like that's what people did to you as a slave to like discipline you. They hit you, they whipped you, they beat you, and it's like, so we take that same principle and bring it in our home.
Yeah.
And like some people, like you listen to people talk about how they raise their kids, or people make these funny comments about particular races, like treating their kids one way or another, and like certain races or cultures are like soft and whatever. And I think there is like a happy medium, because I'm definitely assertive, and I sound very firm sometimes. Sometimes I even raise my voice, but it's so that she can know I'm serious. But the other side of that is knowing that if I tell you you're gonna grow up, you're gonna have a boyfriend, or you're gonna have a girlfriend, and you're gonna fall in love, and you're gonna have friends, and you're gonna love your friends and care about people, and you know, and you're teaching your kids about developing healthy relationships and what that and we've kind of talked about that on here too in other topics, is like identifying what something looks like and teaching kids or people around you like what looks like a healthy relationship, what looks like how you demonstrate that you care or you love somebody. There is nothing in that that says like, hey, if I love you or I care for you, I'll hit you.
Right.
And when you're teaching that, it makes no sense to say, like, obviously I'm your parent, but if you do something bad, I'm going to do something bad to you.
Right. The message doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
I should be like, for me, I want my daughter to know that at home with me is like the safest possible environment, the most loving environment, that the environment where you can come for refuge. You should be able to come to me with anything, and you should feel safe doing that. And I don't ever want her to feel like she's threatened. And the only way you can nurture that type of environment is by demonstrating that. And so when I do lose my temper, it's not necessarily hitting her, but just even yelling. I do the same. Like, I go to her and I'll tell her mommy was upset, or mommy was angry, or mommy was frustrated, and I shouldn't have talked to you like that. And I always end with, like, when people love each other, they don't do that. When people love each other, they don't hurt each other. And this way she knows that it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be upset, it's okay to be afraid, like you said. You know, you scared me. And I always kind of giving them, you know, parents say like, oh, I don't want to give my kid an explanation, because it's almost like they don't deserve one because they're your child.
No, they do.
And it's like, well, how else? You know, I think about that when I was a kid.
I just
like,
hit you, and then it's
why
did you get hit?
Yeah, like how else will
That's
they
crazy.
learn? It's like, oh, they don't need to know. Well, if they don't need to know, then how do they know what's happening? Like, how, even if you are the person that disciplines by hitting,
Right.
you know, like you went to your son and told him, I was afraid, this wasn't safe. Like, how else will they understand that?
That's an extreme that I don't want to do again, because I don't want to get hit. Like, so next time I won't try to jump off the refrigerator.
Because it's not safe, and
Right.
Dad hit me because he was afraid for me, and because he loves me, and he was scared, so he acted in the moment. So it's not giving you a justification for like, oh, when you're afraid you're allowed to hit, but it does give them an explanation to where they're saying like they can understand, because I think that's what our generation lacked. Was there was a lot of parents that were like, I do it because I'm the parent, I'm allowed, like that, do as I say, not as I do.
Right. You don't want to hit your child out of anger, because once again, you teach them how to deal with anger. So, and to your point, no, it wasn't, for me, I didn't think it was okay still that I hit him because I was afraid. That was my own thing, right? And I even explained that to him. That was me, you know, and I don't want you, when you're afraid, I don't want you to feel like you have to attack something, but in that moment, as your parent, I want to see you healthy. But don't get it twisted. I'm not against like spankings. Like, I'm not against it. I had some real gangster spankings as a kid, and I always feel like a parent and child relationship should be open, but you should have the fear of God of your parents. And what I mean by that, in the absence of your parents, you should still do the right thing, because you're thinking, if my mom or my dad finds out that I did this or this, and that's not the right thing to do, I don't want to have to deal with that. And even if it's the conversation you have to have, I think that it really hurts my son worse when I tell him that I'm disappointed that he did something, because I hold him so high when it comes to like making good choices. Ever since he was young, he could make a choice. I try to teach him about good choices. So when he makes a bad choice, I'm like, man, I really, really was rooting for you. Like, you left me no room here to feel like I can trust you in this. And trust for children is huge. As they get older, they want to venture out and go do things outside of you. And if you don't trust them and you tell them, look, I don't trust you, at this point, they know that freedom is about to go away. And I think for my son, as he gets older, he's like, man, I got to do these things to make sure that my mom, my dad understands that I'm not trying to be irresponsible, that I can do these things by myself, that if they tell me to do something or not to do something, I'm going to do it, but I think a healthy mix of like fear and love is good, because we fear God. They say you gotta fear God, but God loves you too. I'm not saying that you're God or whatever. That's a whole other story and another show. But what I'm saying is that you should have a healthy fear of your parents, because I think that's like your compass. You think to yourself, man, what should I do in this situation? I watch my son make decisions, and then he do it because he'll sit there and he thinks to himself, if I do this, like, what's the outcome? And I think when you teach your children at a younger age, we are responsible to grow them and make them adults. Whatever you teach them now is what they're going to do when they get older. So if you teach them to hit and scream and yell when they don't get their way or something is not right, as an adult, they're going to throw a tantrum, they're going to fight, they're going to kick, they're going to scream, because they want to get what they want when they want it, right? Mom and dad did it to me, I'm going to do it to a complete stranger. And I do believe this. Some kids, it's just, to your point, they don't fail, they're unruly. I see them in the store and I'm like, I want to punch you in the throat for your parents. Like, I wish there was a clause somewhere in the law that said if you see a child going bananas in public, punch him in the throat. Because
you're allowed to karate chop.
You're okay with tomahawk him in the throat. Because,
wow.
And
then you look at the parent like, I got you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'll send you a bill.
They needed that. Like,
they really needed it. So it was one time in the store, I was, a kid was like really going off on his mom. And I could tell she had a long day. She had an infant with her too. And the kid was probably about 8. And he was losing his...
And she's over it.
And she's over it, and she just kind of walks away. He's yelling at her, and he's like telling her she's mean. And I said, hey, get up. He looked at me like,
this strange man.
This strange black guy.
That makes it scarier.
Oh, yeah.
The stranger danger.
Oh, yeah. He's going to snatch me up.
And then mom don't save you
because
she's over
Mom was just like, you cause that on yourself. Please. I'm like, get up. And don't you ever talk to your mom like that. What's wrong with you? So go there and apologize to her. He walked over there.
Of course.
He said, I'm sorry, Mom. I said, I better not hit you for the rest of the time I'm in the store. And that boy stuck underneath his mom. Now what happened after that, I don't know. But obviously this is something that happens.
In that moment. But, I'll go back a little bit to something you said. You talked about trust, building trust, and you talked about consequences. The problem with kids, and you also said this earlier, it's like we don't start early enough as parents. And I'm just saying we as there's no a lot of education in parenting, you hear people say it all the time, they're like, oh, they don't come with a book, and they don't. There are books, but they don't come with one. And there are books out there. But not to say buy a book so you can learn how to raise a kid, because those things don't work for every kid. Just like you said, some of them are just unruly and crazy, and that doesn't work for everybody. But it does give some general principles. A lot of different books give general principles, and me and Prince agreed that we're gonna kind of go over some things in some coming episodes to
this is just the first part.
We're gonna do a little series
because this is interesting.
This can be extended.
We might just bring somebody in here.
Yeah, we can, or we could bring
parents.
some kids
and parents.
We could do some kids say the darndest things episode. I
love that.
But it really it's hard because we said, kids are so different. And I've done therapy with families, kids of all ages, and as kids change and grow, there has to be something, you know, it's not like one size fits all. Who you are as a parent for this kid may not work for this kid. And, you know, right when you think you got it, you don't.
Yeah.
And it really changes. I've done some work with families where, you know, they say like, oh, and it's very common in like African American, Hispanic communities where when you have 2 and 3 kids, you're like their brother and sister, they look out for each other, they do everything together, and that's my expectation. And it's hard to walk into somebody's home and say, that's not a realistic expectation, because that's what they're used to and that's how they've been raised. So they believe like all my kids go to bed at the same time, all my kids do this at the same time. They eat together, they sleep together, they get dressed together, they share a room, and it's like I'm putting them in this box and they just do it. And it doesn't work like that. You know, some kids have different needs. Some kids can't sleep around other kids. Some kids, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, like mine, God bless her, I tell her to go to bed, she loves to sleep.
Yeah.
So if I tell her to go to bed, she wants it like quiet. She's like, Mom, please turn off the lights and the TV. But then you have some kids that like don't want to sleep. Like some parents, like friends of mine will be like, how do you do it? Mine won't go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's when you turn off all the lights, you turn everything off, you put them in a dark room by themselves, and you say like,
C'est la vie.
Yeah, cry it out, do what you gotta do. But like I said, it's different for every single kid. And like you said, as they grow, that has to kind of change and shift with their age and expectations. And it has to be age appropriate. And that's, I think that's where we as parents kind of fall short. Because to us, they're always like our babies.
Exactly.
And we kind of have to remember that as, you know, what you're doing at 15, you can't do it at 8 or vice versa. You know, the same expectation is not going to be there. Like at 15, they start, you know, 14, 15, 16, they're like, can I go here? Can you just drop me off? And, you know, we allow our fears and our anxiety and our, you know, what we did when we were kids, we let all those things kind of play into how we make choices. And we have to be mindful that what you said, like we're creating adults, we're creating people that are going to be in our community, that are going to work in our communities, that are going to contribute to our communities, and we have to be mindful of the fact that we're raising them to be independent and not like stay in our.
And you can tell which adults got ass whoopings as kids and the ones that didn't. Like you can literally tell, like, you didn't get a lot of ass whoopings, did you? Because you just act the rudest ever. You know, you just know. I was raised in the 80s and the 90s, so ass whoopings was being handed out like candy. You know, my neighbors was whooping kids.
I was just gonna say, I remember like as a kid, I was like in New York, and I remember my grandmother used to yell out the window for us, and everybody that lived around us knew that my grandmother was watching us and that my mom was at work. So like we had an old lady downstairs, I had like my best friend across the street and her parents were home. So if they heard my grandmother calling us, and if it was like a repeated thing, they would be like, you didn't hear her? I'm like, I'm going inside. Because you don't want anybody else to get involved. But it was like one of those like one size fits all. If your parents ain't whooping your ass, then I don't worry, I got it.
You're getting it. You might get 2 before you get to the house.
So you know, these days you can't do that, but back then it was like
it was the norm.
Discipline was it. Like everybody participates.
Like I said, you can tell the kids now versus the adults now. Like you look at them and like, wow, they are very disciplined in the way they look at stuff. You know what I'm saying? But you get what you get. You raise what you raise. You know. So if you see an adult acting up, go seek the parent out. It's the parent's fault. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and cut it here. We actually are going to do a short show next week. We're going to expand on it a little bit more. We have some actual facts and
we're going to
statistics.
do some research. I'm going to share some kind of reward system ideas. So it's not always like discipline on the front end. So this way we can kind of implement a system in the home where it's something that's ongoing.
Yeah.
So kids have something to like kind of aim for instead of always thinking it's like, I do this, I get this in return. It could be something that you're constantly looking at as, if I do something good, there's something positive. And if I don't, there's a consequence.
Yeah. And I want to bring weapons of choice for parents. We'll hang them up here so you see what it is.
All right.
I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel right below. Make sure you go follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, More and Coffee, and on Instagram at Morning Coffee. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram at P Hakeem right down here. And
Unmatched, unapologetic, but it has like zeros and cool stuff.
numbers and letters and hieroglyphics and all that good stuff. We appreciate y'all. Until next time.